All right, folks, it's time to do my annual NBA playoff predictions. This is my brackets for the 2015 postseason. And, as I did with my NHL and NFL predictions I make every year, I don't just want to come out here and just give you my flying off the handle picks. I want to give you something a little more substantial. On my part, these are not shots in the proverbial dark. These are actually pretty well informed, statistical analysis based predictions. And as always, I'm going to show you the methodology I used. It's kind of hard to read all this, just take my word for it. But what I did was I took all 16 teams in the NBA playoffs this year, and I pretty much gave them an analysis across a wide spectrum of criteria. So basically what I did was I took a look at all the playoff teams, and I evaluated them and compared them based on the following measures. The points allowed per game, the points put up per game, their average field goal percentage, their three-point percentage, their free throw percentage, their opponent's field goal percentage, their opponent's average three-pointer percentage, their turnovers allowed per game, and their rebound differential. So once again, it's kind of hard to read. In fact, I don't expect you to be able to see that as legible whatsoever. But we got all the teams here. They're ranked across the board. And that's more or less what I use as for the backbone for my picks this year. So, moving along. Let's start with the Eastern Conference. Apologies, it's really late at night and I'm very sleepy, but I want to give you high-quality predictions. This could save your college tuition fund someday. If your house is about to get foreclosed, take all the money out of the bank, put it on these. It's a very sound investment. Probably. All right, Atlanta and Brooklyn, not really much to this one. I believe the Hawks are 4-0 against the Nets this year. Brooklyn pretty much stumbled in the playoffs. The Atlanta Hawks, I don't think, are anywhere near as good as their record will tell you. I think they're a team with some major weaknesses, but I think for the first round, they're not going to have any problems. I don't really bore you with the stats here, but it's just pretty much say Atlanta's a better team overall. They're putting up more points per game, better defense, lower field goal percentage allowed. So basically, not much to say here. I'm going to take Atlanta to win this series in 5 games. I think Brooklyn might be able to steal away one. So once again, pretty much expected there. Toronto against Washington. Now this is actually a little bit more interesting. I think Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, leads the regular season series 3-1. And look at the criteria here. Toronto, they have 104 points per game to Washington's 98.5. They're actually allowing more points allowed per game, 100.9 to Washington's 97.8. But looking at the other criteria, I think, pretty much Toronto is the better team. They have a better free throw percentage. Their opponent's field goal percentage is a lot lower. Toronto, they pretty much dominated the Wizards all season long. I don't see much changing here. I'm going to pick Toronto to make it to the second round. Cleveland-Boston. Now, this is a matchup a lot of people want to take a risk. This regular season series is tied. I'm sorry, I'm really slipping up tonight. It's 2-2. Boston, you look at the criteria. They are. Well, actually, no, they're not anywhere near as good statistically as the Cavaliers. They have a better free throw percentage, if that matters to you, and it probably should not. So really all you need to know here is they're putting up more turnovers allowed per game, 14.6 to Cleveland's 12.7. They also have a negative 0.9 rebound differential compared to Cleveland's plus 1.9 rebound differential. I think pretty much it's going to be a fairly competitive series, but I'm going to end up taking LeBron and the boys. I got them winning in 6. So, let's give false hope to the Celtics. Okay, in the first round of the series, the quarterfinal, Chicago against Milwaukee. Once again, this is kind of like the Cleveland versus Boston game where it's kind of a trap game where you might want to think about pushing for the upset. But, once again, look at the criteria. Chicago, they're putting up an average of 3 points more per game than Milwaukee. Points allowed per game, pretty negligible. They're pretty much even. Trying to see what's going on here. Chicago, better free throw percentage. They're allowing slightly less field goal percentage per game. A lower offensive three-pointer per game. They're only averaging about 11.7 turnovers per game compared to Milwaukee's 16.6, which I do believe is actually not only a playoff team high, that might be the high for the entire NBA this season. I have to check back on that. And once again, the big rebound differential number here. Chicago, they're averaging plus 2.3 per game, and Milwaukee averaging 0.8%. That in mind, got to go with Chicago. Don't really know if Derrick Rose will be playing anywhere near as good as he has in years past. But I think they'll play good enough to take this series in 6. Okay, jumping over to the Western Conference. Golden State against New Orleans. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson. They are a team who I believe is putting up a plus 10 point differential. And I think looking at the criteria, pretty much every team that has averaged a plus 10, a double-digit point differential in the NBA regular season has gone on to win the whole shebang. So that bodes very, very well for Oakland, which is something that as a Raiders fan, I thought I would never be able to say in a video. But anyway, Golden State, New Orleans, Anthony Davis has been playing really well, and the Hornets, I think, are coming this really strong. And I think this is actually going to be a surprisingly competitive series. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think Golden State is overall the much better team. But, I don't know. I think they're going to make it competitive. They might actually steal a game or two away, but I think Golden State eventually rebounds and they win this series in 6. Which brings us to Portland against Memphis, and this seems to be like the biggest lock statistically in the entire first round. Memphis has just dominated Portland all year long. They're 4-0 in the regular season matchups. Look at the criteria. Portland, this is kind of funny. I mean, they're actually putting up more points than Memphis, but I believe Memphis actually has overall the best defense in the entire National Basketball Association. They're allowing their opponents only 95.1 points per game, which I believe is definitely a league high for the playoffs. So anyway, Memphis, better field goal percentage. They're allowing less three-pointers per game. They're putting up more turnovers, and while Portland does have the higher rebound differential, like I said earlier, you look at the way these teams played, I don't see much changing. Ultimately, I think Memphis, they're just way too talented of a team. You got too many great players. I think they end up taking this series in 5. I'm very hesitant to say a sweep in any category, in case you haven't noticed. Houston, Dallas. Now, this should be pretty interesting. Dallas, 105.2 points per game, compared to Houston's 103.9. Defensive stats are very similar. Looking at statistics, you almost want to go with Dallas until you realize Houston has won the regular season matchups 3-1. And really in the category where it counts, you look at Houston, they're putting up 0.1 rebound differential compared to Dallas's negative 3.8. Interestingly enough, they have the exact same turnover allowed percentage, which is 15.5 per game. A little interesting. But, like I said, I think Houston has this one in the bag. I expect them to win in 5. Like I said, I just can't go for the sweep. Okay, Clippers, Spurs. This I think is going to be, without question, the most interesting and really competitive playoff matchup in the first round. The Clippers 106.7 points per game compared to the Spurs 103.2. Spurs better defensive units, even if the Clippers better field goal percentage, a better 3-point percentage. Actually, free throws, the Spurs are better. Pretty common field goal percentage allowed. Spurs actually putting up a higher 3-pointer allowed. Turnover differential, turnovers allowed, very even. But really the big stat here, I can't really say this enough, the rebound differential, Clippers putting up negative 0.3, the Spurs 1.5. And I think that ability to get the ball back is going to prove the key factor here. And with that in mind, I'm going to take the Spurs in 6. So let's stick with the West Coast. Golden State against Memphis. Now, I'm going to double check my criteria here. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Don't leave. I don't have to. Oh, sorry about that. I was looking at the regular season matchup. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Warriors here in Memphis have played 3 times. The Warriors took it 2-1. Looking at their stats, Golden State putting up more points per game. allowing about 4 points more per game than the Grizzlies. Memphis better field goal percentage, even though Golden State is actually better. No, wait, Golden State has a better field goal percentage. My bad. Better 3-point percentage, better free throw percentage. No, actually, no, they don't. Memphis has a better free throw percentage. And looking at the numbers here, this is kind of surprising. Golden State actually has one of the highest turnovers allowed ratios in the playoffs this year. They're putting up 15.5 compared to Memphis' 14.6. And of course, they have the exact same rebound differential, 0.2 per game. And, you know, this said, you look at the stats, they're pretty even, so you got to go with really the smell test. And I think overall, just the way Golden State's winning and how they win games, or just put things out of reach, I'm not really sure Memphis' defense can last that long in this series. And as a result, I'm going to go with Golden State. I know it's a very trendy pick, nothing too adventurous, but I'm going to stick with it. And I have them winning the series in 6. Should be competitive. Houston, San Antonio. This one I don't really think is going to be much of a series at all. San Antonio has led this series 3-1. Look at the stats. Pretty even on points allowed. No, pretty even on points per game. Points allowed per game favors San Antonio. Looking at the field goal percentage, once again, I believe it favors San Antonio. It favors them 3-point percentage. Definitely favors them on free throw percentage. 1.5 rebound differential compared to Houston 0.1. And they're allowing less turnovers per game. So with that in mind, I think San Antonio, even if you hate them, they play very boring style of basketball, but it works, and I think that's enough to send them, once again, to the Western Conference Finals for what is apparently a 17th consecutive year. All right, now if you look at the series thus far, the playoffs rather, I've been very conservative with my picks. I've kind of gone with the favorites. It's because traditionally, upsets don't happen in the first round of the NBA playoffs. I mean, sure, it does happen. Like a couple of years ago, you had Golden State knock off Dallas. You had the Rockets get knocked off by Utah, I believe, in 2008. But it just rarely happens. It's pretty predictable. Now, here's my first big reversal of fortune that's going to make me really hated in my hometown of Atlanta. Like I said earlier, the Hawks, I believe, are a paper tiger. This is a team, they've been playing well. They've got some good games. I think with a healthy core, they could go far, and it's a team built for the future. But looking at the way they are now, they got the 2 players that are rested. They're banged up. Paul Millsap, you don't know if he's hurt or not. You know, I just don't really see this team being a very reliable offensive unit. And the thing is, you know, you look at the way these teams have played. The problem with Atlanta is that when they get into a hole and they can't get out, they just sink. It's the traditional Atlanta sports curse. You get in quicksand, they find a way to just throw it all away. I believe the term for that is bulldog luck. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in the regular season, Toronto is actually kind of bested Atlanta. They've beat them 3-1. And although Atlanta has a star power, they have the winning percentage, they had the win streak earlier this year, I think that in a long, drawn-out competition, in a 7-game series, I got to pull the trigger and go with the no-name offense. I'm picking Toronto to win this series in 6. So, sorry guys. Cleveland, Chicago. This one I don't think is going to be as competitive or surprising as the Atlanta-Toronto one. Cleveland has dominated Chicago all year long. I don't think Dick Ray's going to make much of a difference. Don't really want to bore you with the stats here, but Cleveland putting up more points per game than Chicago. Better field goal percentage. Mildly better. Well, actually, it was a way better 3-point percentage. Looking at the differential here, turnovers allowed per game, 12.7 for Cleveland, Chicago 11.7, so that's kind of a tilt. 1.9 rebound difference for Cleveland, 2.3 for Chicago. Statistically, that might favor Chicago, but once again, you got to go back to the smell test. The way these two teams have played, I just think Cleveland's a better overall team. They got more weapons. They're better offensively, better defensively, and at the end of the day, I think they're not going to have too much of difficulty against the Bulls. I got them taking this series in 6. So we got our Eastern Conference matchups, and wow, this is a terrible bracket. Oh my goodness, I can't do this at like 3 in the morning. Okay, well, Eastern Conference Finals. The format everyone expected. The Raptors against the Cavaliers. Like I said, I'm sorry, this is not going to be a very interesting series. I've got the Raptors, looking at the data, Cleveland, they're just better across the board. They're averaging 98.7 points against per game compared to the Raptors' 100.9 allowed. Toronto's putting up mildly better points per game, but really that's kind of a tilt. Cleveland has a better field goal percentage, better three-point percentage. They're putting up less offensive field goals per game, better at preventing three-pointers than another team. 12.7 turnovers allowed per game compared to Toronto's 13.8. And, of course, negative 1 rebound differential for Toronto and a plus 1.9 for Cleveland. I think, you know what, I'm going to have to go with Cleveland. I think they win it, and they're going to win it in 5. So, LeBron, once again, in the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, here, I think, is probably the real championship game for the NBA. Golden State, San Antonio. Offense against defense, and the thing is that may work in football for the defense, but I think with Golden State, the way they've been playing, unless something absolutely just catastrophic happens to Stephen Curry, I think they have enough fire in the gas tank. They got enough fuel. They got enough offensive and defensive threats to make this a very, very competitive game. And I think it's going to be a war of attrition. And look at the data. Golden State, obviously, more points per game. San Antonio has the better defense, though. They actually have a higher... no, wait, they don't. Golden State has a way higher field goal percentage than San Antonio. Better three-point shooting. Let's see, better free throw. Well, actually, no, free throw kind of favors the Spurs. Offensive field goals, once again, favors the Spurs. Point differential, rebound differential, obviously, kind of favors the Spurs. But, like I said, really can't base our decision making here on just pure numbers, and that kind of negates everything I've been saying so far. But I think it's going to be a great series. I think it's going to go to 7. I think it's going to be a really dynamic series, probably one of the best sporting events of the year. But at the end of the day, I think Golden State, they're a team of destiny. They're just playing way too good, and I have them punching their ticket to their first NBA championship finals since like 1908. I know it's a little bit more recent than that, but So we got Cleveland taking on Golden State. Oakland and Cleveland battling for a sports championship in the year 2015. Man, that's something to think about. Well, anyway, I think it's going to be an entertaining series. This is the kind of NBA finals you want. I think, LeBron and Irving and Love and all those guys, they're a very, very good core. I don't think their defense really matches up that well against Golden State. They're not going to be able to kind of stop the three-point parade, but you never know. I think ultimately, looking at the criteria here, Cleveland 103.1 points per game compared to Golden State's 110. Defensively, dead even. They're allowing pretty much the same amount of points allowed per game. Field goal percentage favors Golden State. 3 points percentage, once again, favors Golden State. Free throw percentage favors Golden State. Looking at the offensive field goals allowed per game, favors Golden State. 3-point percentage of the opponents allowed. Once again, it's lower for Golden State, so that means they're better. Turnovers allowed kind of favors Cleveland. But this is kind of interesting. I think the problem there is because Golden State has just been dominating so early, like around the fourth quarter, stopped playing, and this kind of turned the ball over because there's nothing to fight for anymore. So I think that may explain that particular digit. And rebound differential, I don't know, I think it's kind of the same category. I think we're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill by putting much credence to that. So like I said, it should be entertaining. I think Cleveland's going to come out early. They might win a game or two, but I think, once again, this is just a matchup statistically. We haven't seen a team really come out and find that solution to Golden State. And I think in a 7-game series, a war of attrition, I'm not going to root against the Warriors. So that's why I picked them to win our 2015 NBA championship. And you know what? Hopefully this bodes well for future Oakland championships. but it's not going to happen because the Raiders suck.